The short video you're about to watch answers the question, does Jesus' race matter? But before we go any further, I feel it's important to distinguish why I made the question, does Jesus' race matter, rather than, was Jesus black? Despite the vast popularity of the depiction of Jesus as white, Jesus being a black man, or at least a man of color, is not at all foreign to the black community. While I did see white Jesus in mainstream media, even I grew up with black Jesus on the wall. But the question is, does Jesus' race matter for a couple of reasons? First, even though this is a channel focusing on blackness and religion, it would be rather arrogant to suggest that black is the only other race that Jesus could possibly be. Furthermore, and more importantly, we're not the only culture to have taken Jesus and put him in our own image, as you can see. Therefore, it would be inappropriate to limit the question to the concern of his blackness. Second, why ask was Jesus black if we have no idea what Jesus looked like? And believe it or not, nowhere in the Bible is Jesus' skin color described. The one excerpt that is often quoted when hypothesizing that Jesus was a black man is from Revelation chapter 1, read as such. His head and his hairs were like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. And his feet were like unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. It is essential to note that this is a description of Jesus' heavenly form after he was raised from the dead. Because this passage is from the book of Revelation, its main purpose is to provide a spiritual truth rather than a historical one. While I'm no anthropological expert, I do know that we can deduce that Jesus looked like any other man from the Middle East, making him at least a man of color. Lastly, more so than a question about his race, the question, does Jesus' race matter, implies to people that the question affects. While it's tempting to limit the scope of the question to people of this time period, I wonder what impact a Christ of color would have had on an African slave, for example, or to the average black person surviving the lynching era. How beneficial would it have been for them to see themselves in their Lord and Savior who was also wrongfully persecuted? The idea for this video came about after watching an old episode from the Phil Donahue Show with Blair Underwood on it. In the show, Underwood was describing the plot of his new film, The Second Coming, which depicts Jesus as a black man and plants him in a mental hospital. While I was unfamiliar with the film, it made me think of a newer show, Black Jesus on Adult Swim, which put a black Jesus in modern-day Compton. When watching the show, it wasn't at all a stretch for me to think that Jesus was black, and not just because I'd grown up with the images on my wall. Though I recognize the show as satire, there was something deep about the connection to Jesus as black. After all, since Jesus was supposed to represent suffering in its truest form, it only made sense to identify him as black, a people that have been continually oppressed throughout history. In the Phil Donahue Show, however, callers seemed to miss this connection. Instead, they would argue that it didn't matter what color Jesus was. What was more important was his divinity and righteous suffering, making us all one under God. Take, for example, this caller.
Yeah, I wanted to say I'm a 32-year-old white female who was raised Catholic, and I just have to say that no matter if Jesus is black, white, green, red, I believe in the supreme being, and I think that's what we all have to look at.
While their Christian message was meant to be affirming, what they didn't realize was that by saying Jesus' race didn't matter, it ignored the countless years for which his race has been assumed to be white and the direct implications of that assumption. If Jesus' race didn't matter, why were antebellum Christians so keen on portraying a Palestinian man as white? Because of the implications, that's why. Because people know there's power in imagery, and that's why certain people are continually oppressed by being continually excluded. This Jesus' race doesn't matter philosophy sounds akin to colorblind philosophy because both encourage us to simply ignore race. These Christians on the Phil Donahue Show uniformly didn't realize that their ambivalence towards the race of Jesus was simultaneously a denial of people of color's contribution to world history. It's almost as if, instead of letting us win the award, you decide that the competition doesn't matter anymore and that everyone's a winner. So to answer the question, does Jesus' race matter? I would argue yes, but it only matters to a specific set of people, and that makes all the difference. Well, that's all for this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.